Greeting Lions. My name is Mark Lyon. I'm currently serving on our International Board of Directors, and I'm presenting to you today from my home in Brookfield, Connecticut, which is part of District 23A. I'd like to welcome all of you to the viewing of this virtual presentation, and I'd like to thank the organizers from MD19 for inviting me to participate during their convention. My topic today is entitled, Who Hid My Club? In today's challenging times, our local communities, including our Lions clubs, are going through a transformation. My hope for this session is to talk about where we are as an association of Lions clubs and what we need to do to remain an integral part of our communities while we fight our way back from this current COVID pandemic. I hope you'll join me and be able to comment in your own time after this session and share some questions with me as well. And I look forward to continuing that dialogue after the session concludes. So I want you to look at this picture, and I want you to think about what this represents. No one likes empty space. We didn't ask for it, and we certainly don't like it. It's not who we are. It's not why we joined Lions clubs. We are a very social people, but we can't let this brief moment in time discourage us from living our We Serve motto in Lionism. We want these chairs filled. We want our Lions to be active. We want to see them back in our clubs. And more importantly, we want to see them back doing the service that Lions do so well. So here's today's lesson. And this may be our lesson for the day, may be our lesson for the week, for the year, or maybe even for a lifetime. Things constantly change, so we must adapt. The quicker we adapt, the more satisfied we'll be with change. Now, that's a very good statement. That is actually taken with some liberties from Spencer Johnson, who wrote a book many years ago called Who Moved My Cheese? So I'm trying to adapt his thinking to the situation that our clubs and all of Lions are in right now, which is about change and adapting to change. But before we get forward in our discussion, let's talk about change generally. And the history of Lionism is all about change, right? Albeit in a different way from the current situation that we're in. So let's talk through a couple of changes that are important in the area of Lionism. Let's go all the way back to 1917 when our association was founded by Melvin Jones back in Chicago. That was a monumental change at the time, very important social change, very important for philanthropies at the time, to get a group of like-minded people together to form an association that could work to better the lives of our individual communities. Then we move up to 1920, which is when we became international. So thank you, Canada, for joining us at that time. One of the most significant events of change that took place in Lionism, of course, was in 1925, when at the International Convention held that year, Helen Keller was the special guest. And at that time, she challenged the Lions present to be her Knights of the Blind in the crusade against darkness. Boy, did that change Lions Clubs International. That gave us a mission and a sense of purpose, such that we had never had in the prior years. It's something that has stayed with us to this day and something that continues to grow and develop, and we continue to enhance as Lions. Let's jump all the way to 1945. During wartime, the Lions participated in the drafting of the United Nations Charter, a critical step. And a lot of us don't think about it as being relatively important, but it's allowed us as Lions to maintain a seat at the table, so to speak, at the United Nations. And as a non-governmental organization and one of the top-rated, if not the top-rated NGO in the world these days, Lions have had that special role to play and a special seat at the table to offer its guidance and advice to those people that are running the different aspects of the United Nations. And that's both in New York and in Geneva. So a very, very important date in Lions history, and very, very supportive of the need to change in Lionism. Now let's jump up to 1968. That's when our Lions Clubs International Foundation was formed. And we all know how successful that's been over the years. Critically important to serving the needs of the individuals, especially for those in need of special help, for disaster relief, and in supporting huge programs that Lions have been involved with for many, many years now. LCIF is that fundraising part of our association that's critical to change and critical to need to be adaptable to what's going on in the world. And we've done that every step of the way. And then the last date I want to mention to you for change in Lionism is going to be very obvious, and that's 1987, because that's when we allowed women to join Lionism. Critically important time for growth of our association, and critically important today, because the number of women that are joining Lions clubs, the number of women leaders that we have in Lions is growing exponentially, and we need to keep that change happening. We started a new program a couple of years ago called New Voices, and that continues to support our association through growth of women participating in Lionism. So adaptation to change is nothing new for us. It's something that is built into our culture and into our very, very rich past. So let's jump into lesson 1 for today. Lesson 1 is about recognizing change. So I want you to look at some of these words that are on the screen in front of you. Social distancing, flattening the curve, quarantine, lockdown, PPE, isolation, shelter in place. All related to the current situation our world is facing right now, which is COVID-19. And we are all dealing with it in very different ways, depending on where we are in the world. Everybody is being impacted by this, and it's something that has changed the way we as Lions and the way our societies are doing business. But we have to be able to recognize that these areas are critical for our moving forward. In order to adapt to change, we have to recognize the change that's around us. So if you look at some of these key terms, like social distancing, has had a profound impact on the way our clubs organize, the way our clubs serve, and the way our clubs are visible in our communities. We have to adapt to the social distancing rules that have been put in place. We have to adapt to some of these areas dealing with quarantine and isolating ourselves from our friends and our neighbors and our fellow Lions in the days ahead, and in the last 8 months. We've had to continue to do that. So critically important that we recognize the change that's going on, and we need to make these terms part of our everyday world. And sadly, that is the case. And sadly, in these days, when we're recording this, the issue is becoming more prevalent. And parts of this country and Canada and around the world are being impacted in a greater and greater way by the pandemic. But together, we're going to get through this. Together we're going to recognize that this change is just a moment in time, and that it's something that we're going to get through. Let's move on to lesson 2. So, anticipation of change. This is sometimes the hardest part for people. It's important to remember that anticipation is not something to be anxious about, not something to be nervous about. It's just part of good planning and strategizing. So part of the way we do that in our Lions clubs, the reason we stay in existence, quite frankly, is that we need to have a plan and a strategy for serving as Lions in our community. And we all have that, right? Each Lions club is autonomous. Each Lions club has its own board of directors and officers that lead it through its activities. You get together and you talk about what you want to do in your community. You strategize, you plan. And you need to make those ideas and those thoughts, those suggestions, part of the regular communication with the Lions in your clubs, especially during these challenging times, when we don't get together as much, when we're not communicating as regularly as we thought we could. So we need to make sure that all the Lions in your club, and especially the leadership team and those committee chairs for those important projects that you're working on, are equipped to share this constant message with openness to your club members. And that may be different for some of your clubs. Some clubs that are very, very large have a very well-formatted communication that they work with. They work through email, or they meet weekly so that they're always in contact with each other and they're always sharing updated information. But other clubs that are smaller perhaps don't meet as much. Maybe they meet once a month. Maybe they even meet as little as once a quarter. That's where we need to make sure that this change that we're going through is communicated, and that the message that we're sending to our membership is out there. And we need to do this more often. So we always talk about those quiet members in each of our clubs that don't show up at meetings, or that sit in the back of the room and show up to participate more on a social basis than to take on club leadership roles. I think it's those people that we need to communicate with the most. Those silent members that are somewhat active but not participating as much as others are the group that we need to reach out to more. And might I dare that we need to pick up the phone a little more often. Those are the people that need that human contact a little bit more, especially during these days where we're a little more isolated and we're practicing social distancing, or we're just plain not meeting. Those are the groups of people in our clubs that we need to continue to reach out to and to share our ideas with and what we're doing, even if it's just to say we're not going to meet again this month, but we're going to communicate with you by email, so please make sure you check your emails. Or we're going to meet at the local park on Saturday to do our regular cleanup, but if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to be there. We're all going to be masked and practicing social distancing. But if you don't feel comfortable joining us, we understand. We just wanted to let you know that we're still here and you're still a very important part of our club, and we miss you. So that's the communication, that consistent messaging that needs to take place. We need to understand where our clubs are heading and what they're up to, in order to make sure that everybody knows where we're headed as a club and as an association. So you may want to consider sending these brief weekly updates to your Lions, providing timelines on where you're going, what you're doing, the contacts that you're making during these times, and what's different about your club's activities. Very, very important to share that with all the members of your club, not just your leadership team. What we don't want to do is continue to isolate people unnecessarily. It's important that we talk to them, that we write to them, that we pick up the phone and call them. But mostly, just make sure that people know that we're here, and that as a Lions Club, we have an important responsibility to stay connected with our communities and with our Lions. So anticipating change is the vital step. After recognizing what the changes are, you've got to learn to anticipate some things. And that may also be looking down the road at what's coming up. You know, you have to pay attention to the restrictions that are being placed in your communities now for public gatherings. Your club may be small. You may be less than 20 members. And in that case, in a lot of parts of the country right now, you can meet with proper social distancing. But a club of 50 or a club of 75 or larger that gets a lot of people out for a meeting in the normal course may not be able to do that. So you need to have strategies in place, and you need to anticipate where things are headed for your club in the communities that you're serving. So lots of ways to anticipate change, but mostly it's geared around sending that consistent message to your club, communicating properly and on a timely basis and clearly about what your club is getting involved in. So let's move on to lesson 3, and this is in 2 parts. So first of all, we want to talk about adapting to change within your club. I think the first bullet point is somewhat stating the obvious, because hosting virtual meetings has become the standard these days. And we need to consider conducting virtual meetings and making them a better experience for our Lions, at least until we can resume our in-person meetings and events. But this is tough for a lot of clubs. You know, adapting to the change of a virtual meeting is not the easiest thing to do. We need to ensure that we are making it simple for our membership. And for some, that will be impossible. Some people just are not computer people, and we have to understand and appreciate that. That's why doing virtual experiences in a hybrid format may be the best thing for you. Our clubs can meet in smaller groups with social distancing these days, but maybe we also add that virtual element to the meeting so that people can watch or at least listen through their phones, through their laptops or computers, from whatever device they wish to use or have access to. So very, very important to consider that creative use of technology so that you can get more Lions re-engaged in what your club is doing. Now this obviously presumes that your club leadership is ready to take on these challenges of technology. Here in my local area, we have many clubs where the club presidents are not that computer savvy, not that comfortable with putting on meetings in this format. They are the ones that are saying, you know what, we're not going to meet this month. Let's wait till next month and see what's going on. Those are the instances where someone in your club and someone else in a leadership role needs to become that leader and adapt to the change and offer to provide the services to the rest of the club members so that they can continue to share information through either virtual or in person or a hybrid format of meeting. Very, very important for people to step up and make that happen. Now, this may also be a chance for your clubs to optimize their social media channels. Those, as you know, Facebook and other areas of communication are becoming more and more common for us to use as ways to share what we're doing as Lions in our community. So if you have a club Facebook page, you need to make sure that that's updated constantly. You need to use it as a way to reach out to your community by staying connected to other community organizations, and sharing pages and making sure that your events and your activities, or just the fact that you're meeting by telephone occasionally, is important for the community to know. And this will also serve to increase that engagement that you have with your silent Lions, those Lions that don't come out to your meetings normally, and certainly won't be coming out during the pandemic timeframe. But this will help to keep them motivated to serve, because they're going to see things that are going on in the community, and they're going to understand how important it is that your club stays vital and visible in your communities as well. So the second part of this adapting to change deals with your community. As you know, Lions clubs are critically important to what's going on in our towns and neighborhoods, in our cities and counties, depending on the size of the club, depending on how broad the reach is. And social media has become a greater and greater tool for Lions to reach out to the community about what you're doing and how you're doing it and where you're going to be. And as I said before, even if you're just telling the community how important it is to get together and how important it is to share that you are meeting in some format and that you are continuing to plan projects or adapt your projects to a virtual environment, is really important to share with your community. And there are community bulletin boards everywhere. You just have to look online to see whether there are online newspapers or online advertisers or other groups within your town have community bulletin boards. Your local town hall may have its own web page that communicates what's going on in the community, and you need to have a role in that. You need to have a place at the table for your Lions Club to make sure that you're sharing the activities that you're doing during these difficult times. And I'm also asking that you consider inviting special guests to join in your meetings. And you can do that with virtual meetings. You can have them join you, like I'm joining you today, like all the seminar presenters are doing in a virtual world, by recording messages that they want to share with your club. So for example, if you have a social services group that you assist in your town or your community, you want to get the leader of that group to come and talk to you. And they can do that again live if you're meeting live, or record it, or to join a Zoom meeting or other video platform for talking to you, and let them know what's important in the community at that time. A lot of us, because we're a little more isolated these days, aren't following the local news as much. We're following the national issues, we're following the international issues, but we don't always have a chance to reach out and listen for what the current needs are in our own hometowns. So reach out to those people that you've had come to your meetings in the past and ask them to continue to join you, to re-emphasize how important your service is to the community and what they can do to assist. So each of these strategies, both in your club and in your community, are going to become somewhat the normal, I think. None of us anticipated the change of having to go to virtual video formats for meetings, maybe 10 or 15 years from now, but not now, and not as quickly and as effectively as we have been. So these are going to be good training programs, good pilot programs for your clubs to get used to, because we're going to continue to need to pursue our sharing of information in this way, and in our way of meeting. It's going to become even more and more important as we go forward. So lesson 4 today is to be the agent of change. There is so much activity going on in our communities now with Lions. I read it all the time on social media. I get emails from Lions all over the country on what they're doing and the new projects that they're taking on during this COVID environment. It's incredible what we've done and how adaptive we've been to the change. So these are just some pictures that I grabbed off Facebook showing communities in service, working with children in the pediatric cancer wards and hospitals and giving them gifts, doing bulk shipments of PPE and other important products that people need in their communities, working with local food banks to make sure that their shelves are stocked and ready to go to help those people that are less fortunate than ourselves, but mostly just working together. And I want to share a story of what was going on in my home state, in my multiple district, and specifically in District 23C in the eastern part of Connecticut. Following each of our districts applying for and receiving COVID emergency grants to help our communities, District 23C went a step further, and they met through happenstance, actually, a manufacturer who was in an area of manufacturing that was not related to anything that Lions would typically be involved with. They were an industrial company, but they work with materials that could be used to make PPE, to make surgical gowns. And a connection was made, and the question was asked, and the answer was given that this company was willing to donate materials for the local Lions to manufacture and sew these gowns that could then be given away to local hospitals, first responders, and emergency workers during the COVID crisis. And a group of Lions got together with their sewing machines, and the company provided the materials and the patterns to follow, and they made so many gowns to give away, and it became somewhat of a game. I mean, they competed with each other on how many gowns that they could make, and they shipped them all over Connecticut. They hand delivered them to emergency relief workers who were helping their towns and communities. They delivered them to hospitals. They delivered them to nursing homes, and what they really did was they made themselves incredibly visible in their communities through the generosity of a donation from a local business that had no connection with Lions, but who saw a need, and a very resourceful Lion from Connecticut who saw the ability for their groups to get together and help people in the community during these difficult times. So we all have stories like that we've heard. We all have activities that we participated in that we might not have were it not for these changes that we're going through today. So be the agent of change in your communities, and as Lions and as a Lions Club, continue to look for avenues to provide your services in a safe and effective way, because there are certainly more people in need these days, and we want to make sure that we recognize that they are there. So our last lesson is about celebrating the change. You know, we got to keep looking at it this way. There's so much going on in the world, and yet the work that our Lions do is so critically important to our communities. So we have to continue to celebrate the change that we bring about, the change that we bring to our communities, and the recognitions of the work that we continue to do and the work that we continue to provide around the world. I'm going to share a short video with you now, and this is a video prepared by Lions Clubs International. It reflects on crisis, and it not only shares images of what was going on following the events of 9/11, but it also brings into mind the current COVID crisis and how we can address those things going forward. So I hope you'll enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed that short video, and I hope that what I've shared with you today adds value to your club. There's nothing more important than keeping our local clubs engaged, informed, and vital in the days ahead. By adapting rapidly to the changes that we're facing today, we will be able to come out of this on the other side stronger, more committed, and with a renewed sense of purpose with Lionism. Thank you so much for your time again today. I look forward to hearing from you on your evaluation forms, and I look forward to our paths crossing down the road. Thanks again, and take care.